I was inside my house. As soon as we were hit by the first shock, I could manage to escape with my little son. But other members of my family, my mother, my wife, they were still inside the building. And then after the first shock, they came out. And then we ran away from the building to a little open space near our house. We were all gathered there, just holding the earth because it's shaking so mad, so many aftershocks, all powerful aftershocks. It was very scary. I even don't want to remember that day.
On the morning of April 25, 2015, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake hit Ghorka, Nepal, not far from the capital city of Kathmandu. Another followed on May 12th. Together, they killed more than 8,600 people and left over 22,000 injured.
Nearly 1 million buildings are damaged severely. It was a pretty strong, violent earthquake.
When these kinds of natural disasters happen, first responders need to know where to go and how to get there quickly. But that's not always easy.
One of the big differences between US and countries like Nepal is we don't have good maps. If you look at Kathmandu, the navigation is a nightmare. You don't have house numbers. Sometimes you spend hours to reach to your destination. Imagine you have to bring somebody to hospital, and you are counting every minute. And navigation is super important. And that is particularly true in case of disaster, because every minute is important after a disaster situation. When we were hit by the earthquake, many of the earthquake-hit districts were not mapped well. They didn't know where to go, how to go, whether there is a road. We desperately needed a map.
The geography of Nepal really created a lot of challenges for disaster responders. Lots of people live in small villages that are only accessible by foot. If you don't know the footpath to take, or you don't know what size vehicle you can take in there, it's useless. In order to know where to get help to people in need, we needed to first put those people on the map and see where they were living. So something like OpenStreetMap was really invaluable to disaster responders like the Red Cross.
OpenStreetMap is a free and accessible map of the world. Think of it like Wikipedia for maps. You can edit it, I can edit it, and it basically reflects the world around us. The map that we're trying to build in OpenStreetMap these days is a living, breathing document.
In OpenStreetMap, you can make changes. You can improve it.
So humanitarian mapping really dates back to 2004 with the Boxing Day tsunami in the Indonesian Ocean. When that earthquake and then later tsunami hit, it took weeks for actual maps of any value to be made.
But the mapping done on site by trained volunteers showed the potential benefits if online participants could also contribute.
Fast forward to 2010 and the Haiti earthquake, there was now OpenStreetMap existed. And there was a bunch of people that were impassioned to do their little bit. And so the earthquake happened, and immediately 600 volunteers from all around the world started mapping in Port-au-Prince. And very quickly in Port-au-Prince, the map filled out. In a little over a month or so, it was about 1 million edits. 3 years later, the Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines. The storm, though, it was so big and we could sort of see it coming, that humanitarian mappers started mapping 2 days before. Over the course of the next 2 months, 1,800 people contributed 4.5 million edits. So you're seeing this growth 3 years later of the number of edits.
In OpenStreetMap, we learn from every disaster what went good, where are the things we could improve, and we try to improve that in the next disaster.
Local residents and international agencies like the World Bank knew a big quake was surely coming, given the geology of the region.
People knew that, the earthquake is coming in Nepal, but they didn't know when it was coming. Map is a part of preparation for any disaster. If you look at the traditional way of disaster preparedness, what you do is you give training to army, you give training to police, firefighters, which is good. We need to continue to do that. You also need to prepare in terms of information.
Fast forward again to 2015 and the Nepal earthquake, and there's been a lot of effort mapping in Nepal for many years now.
After the Nepal earthquake, nearly 9,000 people from all over the world contributed to mapping. We got more than 2,000 people just within the first couple of days.
During the following 5 weeks of the response, 1.4 million buildings were traced, with volunteers documenting up to 75 buildings per hour.
We were doing 1 million edits a day. We basically made the amount of data that's in the map of Nepal 15 times bigger.
I met up with Mikkel Marin, one of the founders of the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap project in Washington, D.C. This was just a few days after another serious quake, this one in Ecuador. How does somebody who's not on the ground contribute?
Anyone, anywhere can contribute as part of the OpenStreetMap community. So this is the OpenStreetMap website. It's pretty simple for anyone to get started and sign up.
Can we go now to Ecuador and show me the mapping that's going on there?
Sure. So I'm opening the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team tasking manager. So lots of people at one time can go into a project, click at one of these grid squares, lock it for themselves. And you can have a lot of, dozens of people working on the same area at the same time, and they're not stepping on each other's toes. I'm going to select a square myself. When you're ready to contribute, you click the Edit with ID editor. This brings us back to the OpenStreetMap site.
Okay.
I'm zooming in, can add a building right here. I'll add in a road. Starting from this point, follow along the path of the road. And the idea is to work through the entire area in that boundary of that tile. You do that for the entire grid square, then once you're done, click Save, and it's now part of OpenStreetMap.
So could you show us somewhere on the ground in Ecuador where there's been a substantive change due to these efforts?
Just picked a place called La Providencia. This is what was there before, nothing at all, and all of this has been added.
So is it possible to do this work without the help of the crowd?
People are essential, and the network is essential. We need people to spend time and effort on this. It takes a human eye, both to look at satellite imagery and accurately understand what's there, and especially to apply local knowledge.
Today, thousands of so-called armchair mappers around the world log on and contribute to OpenStreetMap both before and after disasters. This graphic shows some of the millions of edits made online in 2013. But sometimes mapping happens on-site and in person. In late 2015, both Nama and Dale were in Washington, D.C. for a mapathon, a mapping marathon.
A mapathon is a gathering of people. So basically everybody is mapping a city, and this is an opportunity to meet fellow mappers face-to-face, interact, learn from each other, share experience.
We've had events where there's 5 people, and we've had events where there's 250 people. And we've had events where there's 900 people all at a mapathon.
Typically, we spend 3-4 hours. They're given training. It's learning, it's sharing ideas, working together, meeting people. It's not very formal.
Mapathons for Nepal were done in Seattle, Portland, Denver, Los Angeles, Washington, New York, and San Francisco. Internationally, these cities and more participated. Berlin, Grenoble, London, Valencia, Calgary, Punjab, Indiranagar, and Tromsø. But for all the invaluable online and remote work, more detailed data must be added. That means mappers out on the streets.
We can use remote sensing imagery for remote mapping.
And then we actually go out and we do the mapping. And we go out to that community and we blanket the community with people that are from the community or from the local Red Cross branch, and we map that community. We can map a community of around 50 to 60,000 people in a week. And when I say map, I mean that means every building, every sewer drain, every fire hydrant, every telephone pole, everything about that community that allows the Red Cross to be able to do our work.
And what I really love about mapping efforts and the mapping story is that it's people coming together from a really positive place and working together to help their own neighborhood, or it could be to help somebody all the way across the world.
And generates a feeling that we have to do it collectively because the problem is too big. No single organization or individual or even the government alone can handle the situation.
OpenStreetMap really helped us. We were able to see whether these villages existed, whether there was damage to houses, and whether people were even still there. People checked these maps every day and were able to get the right aid to the right people quickly.
Knowing that map, that somebody in the field is going to look at the map for 1 second, will make a decision and move on. That 1 second made their job 10 minutes easier. That for me is an exciting thing.
A lot of people contributed to OpenStreetMap. They were not just mapping, they were trying to save lives of people, reduce the sufferings of the people. We saw that firsthand in Nepal. People did that. That's amazing.